What's going on, everybody? Eric Lindquist at Stokastic here on the OddsShopper channel, coming to you with a week 2 edition of NFL Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell goes a long way for me on this video. Goes a long way for you. That way you become a prize whenever great content is going live here at our little neck of the YouTube woods. We had a pretty decent week 1 there in the old Discord. On the video, it was okay in some spots. Obviously, we got 1-1 on the week 1 video in the lock department from last Friday. We ended up getting that Philly one across the board. That was very important. And then, well, we've had some weird catastrophes here on Monday and Thursday night, but Khalil Shakir ended up on a lock on the over of 40.5 receiving yards in that Discord. Ends up going over immediately there. The under of Josh Allen passing yards also going to be pretty unaffected by that. Tua looking good under. James Cook, a bazillion touchdowns. My dear God, what a wild Thursday football game. But either way, we are here to talk about the Sunday main slate. I'm talking about all the Sunday games, including Sunday Night Football. I know that was a separate video last time around, but we're going to make it nice and clean and easy on you. Thursday Night Football, Sunday, every game that's going on there, and then Monday Night Football. But of course, behind me is Tails. And that is the name of the premium Discord, the Lindy Discord. That's where you can find mine, as well as Ben Raza here on the OddsShopper channel, as well as Laffy on the OddsShopper channel. If you've been looking for these guys and you want to get all of their plays, not just the plays that we're talking about on videos or the things that we're talking about, you know, a night before or a couple hours before, things closer to game time, because news happens, things change. Like, I don't know, Devon Achane ends up playing and not limited in any way, shape, or form, it would appear. So that's cool. But if you want to sign up for that, utilize promo code Lindy50, yes, LINDY50 for the OddsShopper marketplace, which is now live. It is now called Tails by OddsShopper. We'll have some new cool, sleek graphics coming to you very, very shortly. Don't you worry. But 50% off if you guys want to join. Feel like we're having a great time in the NFL streets. And I will say the MLB streets continue to be profitable. Hit Colorado money line at plus 260 today over at Caesars. That felt really nice for me, for the people in the Discord to be tailing that one, because, well, baseball's still going, and I'm still posting bets there. So if you miss my baseball plays here on the OddsShopper channel, well, you can let it be known by signing up. Join me. Daily picks, premium Discord, all the plays, including pick'em cards. Lots of opportunity to make some money together. Alrighty, y'all. Without further ado, let's get to the picks. We have week 1 in the books, which means we have to kind of make decisions about what we believe to be, you know, constant long-term and what we believe not to be constant long-term. I think Baltimore is going to be just fine. Pretty tough to get dropped into Arrowhead for a week 1, just back and forth. It was less back and forth. It was more of just like back. It did end up being a competitive football game down to the end of it, but Derrick Henry right around 50% of the snaps, Justice Hill included in as well. Pretty quiet game, though, from Mark Andrews, 2 targets, and then Isaiah Likely. Absolute breakout festivities that we saw from him. I believe 12 targets it was, 111 yards receiving, 9 catches, just an absolute smash. The only tight end to really do anything in week 1 from a fantasy perspective, that's for sure. But I'm actually focusing in on the Vegas side in this football game in terms of props. I do think we've seen this line now move from like the 7s, and it's going to continue move and potentially to 9.5. We shall see. I don't know why my voice did that. I'm a man. But here we are with the Vegas Raiders. I got to say, they are very, very brutal on offense, and we saw that against the Chargers. Chargers look pretty good to me. We'll talk about them later in the program. But Davante Adams, 6 targets for 59 yards. You are paying somebody $1 bazillion to go 6 targets for 59 yards. He's got pretty decent separation numbers too. So this has more to do with offensive scheming and the fact that, you know, Gardner Minshew, he's a serviceable backup, but now enacted into duty, he was efficient, 25 for 33. He did have to do decent enough things at the line of scrimmage. He did lose a fumble. He got picked once. There were some turnovers there. Chargers overall, a well-coached football team. In Baltimore, even more so, they go from Harbaugh to Harbaugh here. However, I think Davante Adams is going to be running into a very, very difficult matchup. I think anybody with a pulse understands that Baltimore's defense is still really, really good, despite, you know, Kansas City finding ways to be effective. Xavier Worthy just going to be a problem in the National Football League this year. But Zay Flowers, Bateman, Aguilar on the offensive end, everything for Baltimore is going to be fine. And defensively, they're going to be just fine as well. I'm specifically looking at Marlon Humphrey. I think he's going to end up doing some absolute work. Ends up being probably Brandon Stevens, but when you have safeties out there roaming in Williams and Hamilton, I think they're going to perform much better this time. Davante Adams, I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but under 5.5 receptions is grading out well for me. It's minus 130 at Bet365. And then Zamir White, over 10.5 rushing attempts. We saw Alexander Mattison surprisingly cut into his workload in a very real way. 13 rushing attempts still, though, in a come-from-behind game, and yet this line comes out at 10.5 at -128. That's the one I'm probably more interested in. Again, we don't want to put every single game and every single play on the card here, that's for sure. Want to be able to gather more information, see if there's anything missing, or, understand that the bankroll is going to get utilized on plays that aren't featured on this video, because I'm going to continue researching until, kickoff of the games. I hope you would be too. So Zamir White, over 10.5 rushing attempts. That's the highlighted one for me here, but just a lean right now. Just to remind the people, leans, likes, locks. The whole idea is that leans are things I'm thinking about betting. Likes usually around a half unit, and locks, 2 of them on this program here in NFL Week 2. Those are going to be 1 unit plays, and both of them correspondingly 1 unit plays right now. But we go to Cleveland +3, taking on Jacksonville. Thought I'd explain it. Hopefully you're listening to the analysis. But this is yet another one that's going to be very quick and easy for me. Jacksonville's defense did a lot of really good things, I thought, against Miami. When you're slowing down Mike McDaniel on opening day, you're probably doing a lot of things right. And I went back and watched a lot of Trevor Lawrence too. I didn't think he was as bad as the numbers show. 12 for 21, 162 yards. He did key in a lot on Brian Thomas. I want to point that out. And Christian Kirk out of the slot, 1 reception, 4 targets, 30 yards. That is a problem. I don't know what to make of that. He's the guy who got a massive contract coming out of Arizona into Jacksonville. Fits the scheme, but you've always had Trevor Lawrence, and I brought this up in the preseason. Calvin Ridley didn't necessarily fit the standard big-bodied Brian Thomas type player that they needed. They need that large X on the outside because Trevor Lawrence prefers them, going back to his Clemson days here until the NFL. However, it's a game that I don't expect a whole lot of points. Jacksonville's defense looked impressive, and then Cleveland, you know what I'm going to bring up. How bad could Deshaun Watson have looked in a million years? I would argue not much worse. Now you're going into Jacksonville. They've had their hurricanes down here. Obviously, there was supposed to be more rain in Miami than there ended up being on that Thursday night game. But they've got some rain in the forecast here in Jacksonville that should be coming up the coast. And I think that makes this one interesting to jam and under. But I hate that these are just juiced up to -120. I mean, the books know which direction you want to be going here. And if this were -110, -105, we would be slamming this. But at -120, this is already kind of baked in. And I know it doesn't sound like a big deal to some of you. It's like, oh, you either like the player or you don't. Yeah, it's price and probability for me. And I've modeled this out a couple of times. I've reran it because I don't like what I saw from Deshaun Watson. 45 passing attempts, completed 53.3% of them, had the 2 picks. Did have 1 really good goal line throw to Jerry Jeudy, so I will give him that. But under 42.5 stands out here to me. Jacksonville's defense might be a lot better than I thought. Finally, we can start talking about some plays. We go lean into a like. Again, this means half unit for me. That's how I allocate my bankroll. That's why I devised it this way on the shows, to give you good information. And, well, let's not be crazy reactionary to the Jets. Just similar to what I just talked about with Baltimore. Could the Jets have had a harder landing spot in hindsight than falling into San Francisco on opening night? Probably not. They won the NFC last season. They beat a really good Detroit team in come-from-behind fashion in that second half, and then lost to, going for a three-peat, the Kansas City Chiefs. They are a juggernaut. I think we can all agree on that, too. Aaron Rodgers looked a lot more mobile than fellow Achilles injury Kirk Cousins, that's for sure. And then working through some of the metrics, Allen Lazard on the field. I mean, I think everybody noticed that one, too, on Sunday night. That was surprising to see him play over Gibson, play way over Corley. Corley not even really on the field. Allen Lazard, it was some garbage time stuff there too, but nine targets, 6 receptions. Allen Lazard from Iowa State, shout out. He's one of Aaron Rodgers' boys. He came along for a reason and is instilled as such. All right, Tennessee. Tennessee, probably one of the bigger chokes on the entire weekend, considering they were at a massive lead. They were finding ways to get things done on the ground with, a healthy dose, I would say, of Tony Pollard, 16 rushing attempts, 82 yards. No Tajay Spears really to be seen in any way, shape, or form. There is coach speak that they want to get him more involved this week. He did have the 4 catches in the receiving game for just 11 yards. But against Chicago, some fluky stuff to have them lose that football game. And yet, I don't trust this offense in any capacity. Plus, DeAndre Hopkins, who was a surprise suit up for week 1 with the knee injury, played just 17 snaps. I can't imagine he's going to get ramped up to 35-40 right from the get-go here. Again, he was barely moving out there. And if you're barely moving, another week in the books here against a much worse offense than what San Francisco is bringing to the table, yeah, I was a little bit wrong as far as that line goes, that's for sure. But Christian McCaffrey got ruled out. I felt good about the 4.5 closing at 3, but I'm going to be laying the 3.5 with the Jets, trying to get a little bit of that coin back. Not going to go the full unit, going to go a half unit on the New York Jets, minus 3.5, standard number, minus 110 everywhere. There are some minus 4s that are starting to get littered across the board, so you want to kind of hurry. Minus 110, 3.5, not going to be sitting there for too long, I would think. Also think my Minnesota Vikings, excuse me, taking on the San Francisco 49ers, not my San Francisco 49ers, although a team that made me some pretty coin early in the season last year when we were pretty hip to some Christian McCaffrey usage numbers. And that's one of the things you want to be paying attention to early in the season is who is getting the workload, and do you think it ends up consisting of, is it going to be repeatable long term? Now, if Christian McCaffrey is active for this football game, Jordan Mason, 28 carries, 147 yards, 5.3 yards per carry. He was a wagon, an absolute wagon on Monday night. Unbelievable performance by him. Did not grade him that highly. I don't think many people did, but the Georgia Tech product is serious. I kind of like what we saw from him. I think it probably helps San Francisco to actually win football games, knowing that McCaffrey doesn't have to play 95, 100% of snaps like we saw at times in 2023, but I don't know how to really take advantage of it because we're not going to get those numbers until those injury reports come out. And I think Christian McCaffrey is one of those guys that we're going to maybe have a 90-minute window to actually bet on in some capacity on mores or lesses, overs or unders, whatever you want to play, pick them, sports books, wherever. So be on alert. I'm going to be paying attention to that news. If you have questions, hit me up at Eric Lindquist on X or in the premium Discord. That's the easiest place to find me. We'll talk about that in a second, but nothing is really being given to us on either side to account for injury news because Jordan Addison, also questionable entering this one. Looking at some of the Justin Jefferson numbers, they look about perfectly efficient. And I do mean projections, and then I have to kind of cut them into the median projections that you're looking for because think about how many times somebody will just get hurt. Is that a 2% or is that a 4% outcome, a 10% outcome for somebody maybe with a massive injury history? Although I never really get that high on the barometer. Just an example. I'm going to be paying attention to Jordan Addison here as well. Johnny Munt only on the field for 53% of snaps, not really looking at any of his overs. Everything negative EV for me in this one, which shouldn't surprise us because some things are turning into one-way markets. Can't bet no's on some of these touchdowns. And, well, as such, Brock Purdy, under 0.5 interceptions thrown. The only thing that makes sense to me here, pretty short ADOT throws. San Francisco can establish the run potentially against Minnesota. And shout out my Vikings. Great week one against the Giants. It was 1 week against the Giants. So I don't really feel good about the spread. Don't really feel good about anything else in this football game, but might be some injury news to react to. And I will be posting that in the Discord. If you want to join it, here's how. Just had behind me on my screen, Tails. Yes, Tails by OddsShopper, now officially live. If you want to join my Discord, jump in there for the Daily Picks Premium Discord. I'm posting MLB. I'm posting NFL. And then when the NBA starts back around, that is my baby. I love myself some National Basketball Association. We're going to be breaking it all down here on the Lindy's programs. I got all the opportunity to be able to post for you day in, day out. Can't wait to bring you this information. And if you use promo code LINDY50 down at the link below, $10 for your first week to come hang out. You don't like it? You're out $10. Go ahead. That's just fine by me. But I think you'll see with the community that we've already built, with the number of sharp people hanging out there, and with the number of plays that have been profitable in there on a day in, day out basis, I think you'll enjoy it. Plus, throwing in those home run round robins. Can't wait to give those to you too. Friday, there are some spots to be targeting in the home run department. I just updated my MLB stuff. So you can check that out down at the link below. And if you're listening to this over the weekend, but I'm going to have some home runs posted there too. Some touchdown bets because, hey, you didn't have any from week one. You don't have any yet from week two on this video, but updating my sheet, gonna have everything available by Sunday. Hopefully have a couple more of those to fire up. Obviously, Jeff Wilson, the one guy, because that's how life works, the one guy on the sheet, but whatever. Back to the picks. Chargers, Carolina. I would say in terms of expectations for the Chargers, looked a lot better than people expected. I would say from the Carolina side, brought it up so many times on this program. I don't even know how. I almost feel wrong having put them in as a lean because I even said in my analysis over and over, I don't trust Carolina. You should not trust Carolina. And a lot of sharp people were on that +4. I'm curious when the bring back comes for this game because LA, I mean, they can establish the run with a healthy J.K. Dobbins, and I don't know how long he stays healthy. Fingers crossed, because he's an absolute game changer if he can. But again, rain in the forecast here in North Carolina. Come on and raise up. Take your shirt off, twist it around your head, spin it like a helicopter. I had to decide if I was going to commit to the bit, but I half-heartedly did. But I'm looking at Chuba Hubbard. I think this is a really good spot to be buying back in on him. Now, against the Vegas Raiders, you saw the Chargers be very, very effective, slowing them down on the ground with a number of catalyst pieces there up front. I mean, Bosa is just an absolute wagon. My dear, sweet Jesus, Lord of our Savior, amen. But we got the Chargers here. I think rushing-wise, 58 yards per game, not going to be sustainable. Not going to be something we normally see. Plus, they were able to key in on Devontae Adams, key in a little bit on Brock Bowers towards the end of that Las Vegas and come from behind mode. I think it had more to do with game script. I think Carolina also had to do with game script on why you saw a very, very limited Chuba Hubbard here and Miles Sanders worked in more. They were down a bazillion from the get-go, and that was the way the cookie crumbled. Only 6 rushing attempts for Chuba Hubbard. I expect that to go way up here. In fact, this would be a lock under most circumstances, but I'm keeping this at a like because, I repeat, it's Carolina. So for a second straight week, I got to go back to the well on Chuba Hubbard. Over 43.5 rushing yards. I like it. Not going to get crazy, but I do think the game script and the early picks by Bryce Young, what are you doing, Bryce Young? I think it led to Chuba Hubbard being off the field more than what Carolina otherwise would have had him. Now, I've brought up, this team's a surprise. This team's a surprise. Nobody's surprised Carolina sucks. But I think a lot of people are surprised that New England, I stayed away from them in survivor leagues. Thought it was a little bit trappy there when T. Higgins gets ruled out. Now, T. Higgins has not practiced the first couple days of this week. Doubt he practices Friday. Doubt he ends up in that lineup. So, have fun if you're Cincinnati. But we're, of course, talking about New England. And New England did a lot of great things defensively. I think I did key in on a number of those pieces that made the most sense to me. We had the Zach Moss. He ends up being involved a lot more. Felt good about that also. Okay, not talking about Cincinnati and their faults. We'll get to them because we're going to attack them this week in a little capacity. But shout out the defensive unit there from New England. They came in, knew exactly what they were trying to do. Play a low-scoring football game. Just win at the line of scrimmage, establish with Ramondre Stevenson, and then defensively, you do your thing. Now, Christian Gonzalez, he did not have a very good game. He is a first rounder out of Oregon. He got hurt right out of the get-go in 2023, but he was one of the best cover corners, shut down Tyreek Hill in a very prominent way if you go back and watch that tape. He didn't have a great game, but now he'll be matching up against DK Metcalf, and I'm kind of curious how this ends up playing out. Geno Smith ended up scrambling quite a bit. That's going to be something we'll talk about when we get to Denver. Man, my brain going all to different places. I feel like the math equation with, the hangover. Just seeing all the numbers. But I think New England is a decent back here, and plus 3.5. Having that extra half point is a big deal to me here because I think New England is going to do everything. Look at the total, 38.5. It lowers the variance of the football game. Jacoby Brissett didn't have to do anything other than just be functional at times in this offense. That's all they're going to ask him to do, and they're going to have the pieces on the defensive side to be more competitive than what I think 5.5 win. That total could look toast in hindsight, but not going to be crazy reactionary, but you're giving me 3.5 on a defense that played that well on the road in Cincy. I'm going to back them at home against a Seattle team that could be playing without Kenneth Walker, who has not practiced Wednesday or Thursday. Pay attention to that news as well. I don't have a ton to talk about here. New Orleans and Dallas. Dallas played that game the way that they were supposed to. I felt really good about that under. Obviously, Cleveland just pissed on themselves. There's nothing else to say. They looked horrendous. Turnovers, good field position for Dallas. Dallas didn't even really have to do anything, and they were putting up points there at times. And obviously, you got some fluky special team stuff. You had this and that to the fray, and it's just wild times there in Cleveland. But Dallas, you got to give them props defensively. They look like a top 3, top 4 unit yet again after week 1, and they might have just made Deshaun Watson look ridiculous. I think Deshaun Watson does a good job of making Deshaun Watson look ridiculous, if we're being honest. As for New Orleans, they put the beat down there on Carolina, but the beat goes on, ba-dum-bum. You better lose yourself and forget about what we just saw there in the week 1, because it was Carolina. I repeat, you played Carolina week 1. A lot of people are going to look good, I would think, against Carolina. I still think Allen is one of the worst ball coaches there is. I do think Kamara is going to be an interesting piece in this football game. But my God, I mean, they're just loaded on the defensive front here. I don't see how New Orleans just goes out and establishes the run here. They had some garbage time for Jamal Williams, not really reading into that. However, we've seen this number get to 6. I'm leaning that direction on the New Orleans side. Dallas did have some issues at left tackle. I want to point that out purely because it's a rookie. Anytime you're going to be starting a rookie and you lose Tyron Smith, who's one of the best guys out there at the left tackle position, there's going to be a lot of work to be done. And Tyler Guyton, first rounder out of Oklahoma, picked 29th in the draft this year. I think we're going to see some improvement, but God, Guyton, what are we even doing here, bud? You got to pick it up there. You got to protect the blind side of the newly paid, newly minted Dak Prescott. This game is really unappealing. Hopefully I talked about something that helps you there, but New Orleans +6, my lean. Dallas, the superior football team. I just can't do it. I can do this, though. You look at some of the usage. Devin Singletary on the field a lot for the New York Giants, despite getting waxed, absolutely waxed by my Minnesota Vikings. That was wild times. As for Washington, they were in come-from-behind mode. I think the thing you can highlight star centerfold was the performance of Jaden Daniels rushing the football. 16 attempts. 16 attempts. What are we, Lamar Jackson? 88 yards on the ground. Jaden Daniels could be that dude. Obviously, he won a Heisman for such things, but I think we'll see some improvements in the passing game as the weeks go on. However, do you trust Cliff Kingsbury? I don't. Offensive coordinator here at Washington, not really involving Terry McLaurin in any way, shape, or form. I'm not sure what to make of it, but I got to say some of these props look really low on the Washington side going up against a Giants team that just got throttled by the Vikings, although the Vikings did have some fluky pick-six stuff too that kind of, dimmed down their performances. Offensively, we still have some question marks there. Some of the usage. Didn't talk about that with Aaron Jones. That was something I wanted to highlight, but I'm bringing it up now. He didn't play very many snaps, like 53%, but Aaron Jones got paid a lot of money. You need him healthy if you're the Vikings, so I get it. As for the Giants side, I just said it before, I'll say it again. Malik Neighbors is a truther. He's an absolute wagon. I've said that multiple times here this week, but I actually believe it with him. 7 targets, 5 catches, 66 yards against Stephon Gilmore. Pretty decent stuff overall. Slayton, Hyatt, Robinson. What are we even doing, Giants? You have such a ridiculous core around him. Something's got to give. But I think Devin Singletary is the thing that stood out the most for me. You did get 5 targets, 4 receptions, 15 yards from check down Daniel Jones here in this one. I think the workload is still very, very secure for Devin Singletary in the early portion of this season. As they lose games, potentially, you're going to see Tracy start to mix in a little bit more. But for right now, 13.5 with 5 targets. I got to think you're going to be playing a pretty competitive football game. 1.5 tells you yet again. 1.5 for a second straight week. Gotta have some exposure. Devin Singletary over 13.5 receiving yards. This didn't move a lot from last week, and it should have. Get 5 targets here in the passing game. I think you just put him in for 4 targets here. He's going over this number, a high clip. -114 on FanDuel, where this one's listed. I said before that we were going to talk about players that we're not sure what their usage is going to be going forward. We're not positive if what we saw in week 1 is going to carry over into week 2. Is this the new role of the team? Is, this player going to end up getting demoted? Like, are we going to see Curtis Samuel play sub 30% of snaps the rest of eternity? Or are we going to see him see more? Are we going to see Aaron Jones left underneath 55% of snaps? Or are we going to see Chandler mix in a little bit more? We're not sure about the usage of specific players, but Jameson Williams is the guy that popped it for everybody. You get these primetime games, Sunday Night Football, you have a couple deep shots, you get some separation, and all of a sudden, life is dandy, life is perfect. But not many times do you get like an unbelievable, no doubt, would have been top 5 pick in the draft if it weren't for an ACL injury in an SEC game like we had with Jameson Williams. Then you had the gambling allegation. Well, not even allegation. He gambled, and then he ends up having to sit out for some suspended games at the beginning of 2023. So rehab, very limited 2022, very limited 2023. This is the first year we're getting Jameson Williams, SEC baller, in the fray. But the Alabama product could not have looked better. And I will at least talk about Tampa Bay for like 2 seconds. I love a lot of what they did. You did have McMillan, who I was very high on coming out of Washington. He ends up dropping what would have been a second touchdown, I suppose, but it happened earlier. So I don't know. You don't know if the second touchdown happens, if the first touchdown does happen. But either way, he catches a touchdown. He was on the field over 80% of snaps. Good stuff. Mike Evans, 2 touchdown catches. Chris Godwin, touchdown catch. Shout out Baker Mayfield. Guy just found a way to improve. And whether it was just a short 4 or 5 week stint with Sean McVay to realize, oh, I can be all right. And bringing that offensive coordinator into Tampa Bay to help him develop here now under this system for a second year. I'm pretty excited about Baker Mayfield and these Tampa Bay Bucks. I kind of like this over at 51.5 as well, but it pales in comparison to what I was talking about with Jameson Williams, who is an absolute wagon. Some of his separation numbers are out of control. He had 9 targets as well. He had 127 air yards. 127. This is a ridiculous, potentially voluminous type guy that we're looking at. And if you're an Amon-Ra St. Brown owner, I mean, best of luck to you, but we're talking about gambling here, friends. We're talking about things that you can put money on down today. And everything that I saw from week 1, from his separation numbers to his air yards, to his targets, to this functional offense that obviously the Rams defense played far more functional defense than I was expecting them to against what I believe to be the number 1 offensive line in football with the Detroit Lions, what most people believe to be the number 1 offensive line in football. But Jameson Williams cannot possibly be sub 50 yards right now, right? No, friends, it gets even better. Jameson Williams is currently listed at 44.5 receiving yards. This is unbelievable. We could see him have this unbelievable breakout because he's been on bubble wrap basically for the last 2 years as he developed into this player that we're seeing before us. He's a sub 4.4 speed guy. He has the ability to get wide open in route cover. Like, he is an unbelievable football player, and we just saw it. And I believe it more than I am inclined to say that it is not going to be repeatable. So give me more over 44.5 receiving yards as well as laddering him. Yes, I'm going to ladder up Jameson Williams with smaller unit allocations, but we're going to lock a full unit here on Jameson Williams. We're going to go 75 plus, 100 plus ladder. First read could potentially be Jameson Williams going forward, which is wild to say with how good Amon-Ra St. Brown is. I'm not going to hit the panic button on him yet, but you give me 44.5 receiving yards with this type of air yards, I'm going to do it every single time in an offense as potent as Detroit's. Indy and Green Bay up next on the docket. And big news, Jordan Love. Well, they decided to go play Brazil on ice or whatever it was for that football game on Friday. And, well, last series of the entire game, come from behind mode, he ends up getting dinged up because of course he does. We can't have nice things, but even as a Vikings fan, it sucks because I think Jordan Love, I said it last year, I'll say it again, I think he's very, very good at football. You don't usually pay guys a lot of money who are bad at football. Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson might have something to say about that, but for the most part, it rings true. However, Green Bay went out and picked up Malik Willis, who we saw at Liberty Bibberty, and then also a little bit with the Tennessee Titans. He is all run first. If you have any of these Green Bay wide receivers, you are not starting them in fantasy football. If you have options on the waiver wire, I would almost be looking at like a McMillan. I would almost be looking at, Greg Dortch is probably gone in most people's leagues, I would think, at this point in time, although I saw some low percentages hanging out and littered around the industry, but is what it is. All that being said, I'm going straight to the Indy money line. I think this is a great parlay piece to carve out. Yes, it's in Lambeau. Yes, LaFleur is a great play caller. And yes, he brought in Malik Willis because he felt as though he could develop him. Hard to develop him in like 3 weeks and get him ready to rock here in this spot. You were hoping for a little bit longer leash. Malik Willis does have some familiarity, having played Indy in that division once upon a time, not successfully, but I do think Indy is going to establish the run to some extent against Green Bay. We saw Philadelphia be serviceable in that department with Saquon Barkley, wouldn't you say? Hey, yeah, they were okay at it. And Green Bay, this game probably looking at the under as well, but I definitely like taking the Colts here at minus 140 on the money line. You can still get that. It's at bet 365. Hey, let's talk about that. Friends, if you want to bet $5 at a sports book and get $200 in bonus bets automatically, all you have to do is go down to the link below. You have to just simply sign up at bet 365, and when you do, get $200 in bonus bets, no strings attached. Again, bet 5, get 200. That's a great opportunity. It's now available in Pennsylvania. It's been available in New Jersey, Arizona, Iowa, and so many other great places. Check it out at the link below if it's available in your state. Build that bankroll. That is all I ask of you, is build that bankroll as best as you can by signing up as many sports books as you possibly can. Bet 5, get 200 in bonus bets now. Alrighty, y'all, back to the picks. All right, hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell as we go to Rams, Arizona. What a football game we ended up getting treated to. I loved the Rams and Detroit game. Some people, I thought it was going to be a shootout. I thought it was going to be I loved watching Jameson Williams break out. I also loved watching David Montgomery, shout out Iowa State again. He absolutely was a bulldozer in that overtime period. But the Rams, they were far more competitive on the defensive side than what I was expecting them to be against Detroit. And as such, well, we're happy that we didn't end up putting any coin down on that because it would have been wrong. Would have been very wrong there. Thought Detroit would blow the doors off them to some extent. But anyway, I'm looking here at this specific game, and everything has me just jamming the Rams. Let's talk through situational football. The Los Angeles Rams are 0-1. They have Matt Stafford. He's got this massive contract traded. I guess not massive relative to some of these other quarterbacks that exist, but I would say probably the best football mind in all of football, Sean McVay. Look how many people have left his coaching tree. He's like the branch that keeps on giving. He's the wishing tree, if you will. Or that's a terrible analogy, and I'm going to move on. The Rams have the best coach, I believe, in football in Sean McVay, or at least one of the sharpest minds who understands the game. He understands schematics. He understands player usage. Play your best players when you can, and don't invest a ton of draft capital, or not draft capital, but a ton of money capital in the running back position. Cam Akers. This was a massive piece of the fantasy season, tail end of 2022. 2023 gets cast away for Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams becomes the truth. Beginning of this season, we don't know what's going to happen or here or there. But I do know Cooper Kupp, 9 more targets, 21 targets, 9 more than any other wide receiver or pass catcher in week 1. Unbelievable amount of volume that we saw because, again, you get your best players the football. Cooper Kupp has battled injuries here in the last couple of years, and now Puka Nacua, he's going to be the one who has to battle him on the other side. Before I go, to the play that I've already explained, Arizona did put up a fight in Buffalo. They covered that 6.5 for us in the premium Discord. Them in Denver, love them for it. We really, really appreciate you. Thank you for your hard work. But Arizona defensively still has some holes. I know that they're a much improved unit in some capacity. Like, I like a couple of the pieces that they have spread around defensively more than I was expecting to on that side of the ball as well. Specifically highlighting Wilson, specifically highlighting Zaven Collins, who just continues to improve out of Tulsa. I mean, some of these guys that come from smaller schools now, so hard to grade, but one of the better outside linebackers, I think, in football now at this point already. But Arizona, man, Kyler Murray, Greg Dortch, Marvin Harrison. Not sure what's going on with the Marvin Harrison connection, but this is still an unproven entity relative to the Los Angeles Rams when Matt Stafford is healthy and active. Matt Stafford is healthy and active with a healthy Cooper Kupp at the top of his powers potentially. And that, for me, is just saying I shouldn't have a coin flip on the Rams. I shouldn't. I have the Rams closer to a 56% expected win percentage. You give me this large of a gap between where I projected out and where the books do, I'm going to lock that every single time because I was expecting to see minus 122. On the flip side, I would almost be moving those lines around. I understand Nacua is a huge miss. I understand that Aaron Donald is never going to be replaced for what this Rams defensive unit can do, but I really like seeing Verse and Young and what they brought to the table. I thought Kobe Durant had an awesome game in Detroit, and he'll be out on Marvin Harrison Jr., who I don't know what's going on with him and Kyler Murray and the design and why they're not getting him the football, but I'll take advantage of it for the time being. Give me the Rams all day at plus money. We've got 3 games to round it out. Once again, hit that like button for me as we talk Pittsburgh, Denver, Bo Nix, Captain Checkdown. Oh my goodness, did you watch this? Did you watch the Seattle festivities? Because I did, and I didn't enjoy it. I did end up on a small play where I was tailing a buddy of mine on over for rushing yards for Bo Nix. It was like sitting 17.5, 18.5, closed at 19.5. He ends up going for 35, ends up scrambling decently well, but 3.3 yards per catch? What? That is just absurd in the year of our Lord 2024. What are you playing in football in the 1920s? Like Bo Nix, let's get the ball downfield, Sean Payton. Let's get the ball downfield. That was pretty ridiculous to watch. But I want to bring this up because Geno Smith was finding ways, and I almost put this down on the card. So this is kind of a special to the people who actually listen to me. Geno Smith had 4 rushing attempts for like 30 yards. He is not a scrambler. Geno Smith is a pocket passer. If he's under pressure, yeah, most quarterbacks can find an outlet here or there, but not for 30 yards. Justin Fields is going to be running the football in an Arthur Smith offense. And we did end up on that +4 in the Discord backing the Steelers as that number kept rising. I didn't trust Atlanta. I've been under on that 9.5 win total for like 6 months, banging the drum, or 4 months it would be, banging the drum on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC South. You got to get away from it. You just got to get away from the Atlanta Falcons. And, well, you couldn't have seen anybody look worse than what Kirk Cousins did. But Justin Fields on the other side of that one, he ends up having 14 rushing attempts, 57 yards on the ground. And now, schematically, you're going to go up against a Denver front that doesn't really bring it to the table. I'm going to look at like 50 plus, 60 plus, 70 plus. I might be looking at a small little ladder play on Justin Fields because I legit think he could run for 100 yards against Denver on what we saw there. Outside of Patrick Surtain, they not much on the defensive side. But Denver, I want to look at Javonte Williams because this is yet another thing where I just don't believe in the usage right from the get-go. Jaleel McLaughlin, he did get involved quite a bit in the rushing attack. 10 rushing attempts. 5 catches. I think that had more to do with the game script, playing from behind, Kenneth Walker establishing the run for Seattle, and Denver trying to do things in crunch time to bring that football game back. And, well, I'm happy they did because they covered the 6.5. But Javonte Williams, only 8 rushing attempts. You're not going to see that happen in, like, neutral game scripts or game scripts that stay closer. Or Denver, again, they're the dog here. So, not saying that they're going to just be able to establish the run automatically, but Javonte Williams is not going to be outtouched by Jaleel McLaughlin this much going forward. I would be shocked in the rushing game if that were the case. So over 40.5 rushing yards, small play. Actually, it's a little bit less than a half. I have 0.4 on this one purely because I wanted to get something here down on it, and then I'll react to where the line moves because there's a chance it ends up dipping and people end up on McLaughlin or something. I'm just going to be patient. There's going to be plenty of prop exposure later. Almost locked this, almost did it. Cincy and Kansas City. Cincy, what are you doing, guys? What are you doing? T. Higgins, hamstring injury, not out there, just brutality. Their offense is being ran in shotgun, and you're going to run shotgun without T. Higgins out there. What are your other options here? Like, I like Yeshivas. I think he's a decent wide receiver, but not as a number 2. And then Jamar Chase, limited snaps to some extent. I mean, he'll be more involved this time around. Obviously, the contract is still not officially done as of recording this, so I doubt it gets done at any point here. I don't even know if they can do it now that the season started, but I would assume that they still could. But I look at a guy like Jamar Chase. He'll be just fine going forward for all you fantasy people, and his outlook looks pretty decent. I think this is pretty efficient, but 6 catches, 6 receptions, maybe get him a little bit more involved considering, I know that he had the summer holdout. I know he came late to camp, but still, it's Jamar Chase. You got to get him the football. Going to be a tough thing to do. And I know they call this Burrow head because he's had a ton of success out there, but nothing Joe Burrow did looked all that appealing to me. Pretty much everything Patrick Mahomes did looked pretty darn appealing to me. You can establish the run even a little bit more if you want to on the back of Isaiah Pacheco. You didn't even have to get Travis Kelce involved, and Rashee Rice is so damn good out of the slot. And Xavier Worthy just pops because, again, 4.2 speed and just absolute ridiculousness at every single spot. I'm absolutely going hook, line, and sinker for the 5.5 here. Kansas City, I see no way around this. PFF just grading everybody around the board on the Kansas City side very, very highly. I respect a lot of their player grades. I respect the way that they go about it as well. And I look at the defensive side, everybody outside of Logan Wilson, who's an absolute joke how good he is at football out of Wyoming. Outside of him at the middle of the linebacker position, trying to stuff the run, nothing that they can do to slow down Kansas City here. It's going to be a blowout. Have fun. And then let's go a little single game parlay to round out the video. Chicago and Houston. I'm looking at the running back position. I feel like I featured it a couple of times here as we rounded out the program. Devin Singletary, Javonte Williams. This is probably my favorite spot, and it's somehow 2 of them here. I'm going to take a little bit of a tiny reduction, and I don't like paying a ton of juice here. In the baseball streets, I've started integrating lean light. That is where I think I'm going to bet something no matter what, but I want to wait because, again, likes are things I've already bet. I have a ticket for it. I can show it to you. It is what it is. But when you go to this bottom bar here and you see lean light, know that it's something that usually I haven't bet yet that I am looking for a way to attack it. DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon, absolute bell cow Joe Mixon, and DeAndre Swift, weird game script where Chicago was trailing the entire time and they win it with special teams and defense. I don't think that that's going to continue. I know it was only 10 carries. I know it was only 3 yards per carry, but there are so many scenarios where that goes up. Houston defensively, you still saw Jonathan Taylor be semi-effective there. I don't think we have any concerns over either of their workloads. And Joe Mixon, wagon. No idea what his rushing prop is doing down here, but I didn't want to put another rushing prop for the people. So look at 40 plus rushing, 60 plus for Joe Mixon. I'm probably going to make those individual bets as well, but waiting to see where those lines get set at. This comes up on Sunday night, so lots of time to be able to react to it. Again, hop in that premium Discord or ask me on X at Eric Lindquist. We'd be happy to let you know where I end up on here in this game. But Caleb Williams, not the greatest debut. CJ Stroud, he's still pretty good. And that does it for another edition of Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. Week 2 Sunday, main slate in the books here, as well as Sunday Night Football. Combine the two for you here. Nice and easy to consume for you. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. If it's your first time hanging out at the channel, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Check out Tails. You can sign up for that. Promo code Lindy50 down at the link below. Great opportunity. Check out Bet365 as well. Only for 21 and over. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Alrighty, y'all. I'm out of here until until Monday Night Football, that is. I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck in the NFL streets on Sunday.